Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I'm going to demonstrate how to make a pillow. That first pillow on your left hand side is the easiest. Take you 20 minutes. On the front it's just one solid piece of fabric. The one in the middle I used stripe fabric and it's got 4 pieces stitched in specific directions so that stripes are going every which way. And if you want to do that one, click on the link in the upper right-hand corner and it will explain to you how to put those 4 squares together. The one on your right has decorative stitching on the front and piping on the edges. You could do it with just the piping and leave off the decorative stitching, or do the stitching and leave off the piping. It all depends on how much time you want to do. Now let's take a look at the back. On the back, there's 2 pieces of fabric, so it's easy to slip your pillow in and out. And you'll also notice I made a coordinated set because I mixed and matched the fabrics between all 3 pillows. So let's get started. You'll need the following supplies. Fabric for the front, you could use 1 fat quarter or purchase a half a yard of fabric. For the back, 1 fat quarter or purchase 1/3 yard. Piping, fabric that you'll need is 1/8 of a yard. The cording that you need for the piping, I'm using 1/4 inch diameter. You'll need about 2 yards and 1 16-inch pillow form. If you want to make all 3 pillows, I would purchase about 1 yard of fabric for each of the 3 colors, and then of course the cording, you would need 6 yards of cording and 3 16-inch pillow forms. To cut the strips out for the piping, have your fabric folded with the selvage edges together down here. Then bring the raw edges of your fabric. So you're folding it together over here. This way you can cut everything out at one time. So if your edges are jagged over here, which they probably will be, you need to cut them straight. So I place my ruler on a line on my cutting mat and then just trim it straight. Now this is only if your edges are jagged. Then move your ruler over 1.5 inches and then cut. And now you have 2 strips cut. Then you need to cut your selvage edges off. So place your ruler on the end and trim them off. I'm going to demonstrate how to cut out the 2 pieces you need for the back of the pillow. Have your fabric folded with the selvage edges together down here. And make sure your folded edge up here is on a line going straight across this way on your table. And you're going to pull this edge here past the first line on your cutting mat. And you're just going to cut it straight all the way down. Then lift your ruler, don't move the fabric, and go over 11.5 inches and line up that ruler again. Make sure it's nice and straight on your cutting mat and then cut. Turn the fabric so it's going along this way now. Place this raw edge here on a line going straight across. Pull this end past the first line over here and trim the selvage edges off. So place your ruler on the line and cut. And move the ruler down to 17 inches. Make sure that ruler is straight on the lines and then cut. On the 2 pieces of fabric for the back, you're going to press the edges on one side of each piece. So have the back side facing up and then fold your edge over about 1/4 inch and press. And then fold it again and press. And then at your sewing machine, go ahead and stitch right along this inside folded edge to hold it down. If you're not interested in making this with the cotton batting and the decorative stitching, then you can just skip this part. For those of you who want to do it, place your cotton batting underneath the fabric for the very front of the pillow. Make sure the right side or front side of your fabric is facing up. Also, you could call it the pretty side. Scatter straight pins all over it. And the decorative stitch pattern that I'm going to do is on a diagonal. And basically what that is starting in the corner and stitching right up to the next corner. If you wanted to do straight line stitching, here is your pattern. So you would start in the center, do a line, go off to the side, go over, I'm going to probably go over about 3 inches and stitch, and keep going till you work your way to the other side. Then come out this way, do the same thing, and repeat the pattern. Then turn it, and then you would wind up stitching this corner to corner. And go in the center first, work your way out, then go out here and work your way out this way. If you have this stitch on your machine, and a lot of you probably do, it's called the serpentine stitch. And what I like about this stitch, that if your lines aren't exactly straight and even, it's not as noticeable. So I use this stitch all the time. Here's what mine looks like when it's done. You can see the little curvy lines going across here in both directions. Take your 2 binding strips and bring it front sides together and stitch a 1/4 inch seam along here. Then go to your ironing board and press this seam open. Here's the cording. If you cut the cording without putting tape on the end first, this is what happens. It instantly unravels. So wrap a piece of tape around it, then cut it off, and then you will have your ends looking like that, all nice and clean. So you don't want this to happen where it just it unravels really fast. When you're starting to do your piping, you're going to take the cording and place it in the center of your strip. Wrap around the piping so that the raw edges are together. And then you're going to stitch as close as you can to the cording itself. Don't start right at the end. Go up maybe 5 inches and then start stitching. Here is a piping foot combination zipper foot, and what I like about this is you can get up real close to the cording inside of your fabric there. So let me show you at my sewing machine how that works. I have my piping foot on. Remember to keep the cording in the center of your strip of fabric. Fold the edges together over here and try to keep the piping foot as close to the cording as possible and stitch down. And you just keep adjusting, bringing everything together and stitching. Lay your cording out sort of roughly around the edge so that you see approximately where you're going to be meeting the 2 ends. Let me bring this back a little bit, because when you're stitching your fabric around the cording, you want to leave open area at each end so that once these 2 ends meet each other around here, you have enough space to stitch the ends together, and then you do the final closing of that piping. Start somewhere in the middle on one side and place your pins, and I like to place them in like this. I think it's easier to stitch. And I pull the edge of my piping in just a little bit because I want that extra space there. As you come down to the corner, you're going to find it's going to really bunch up and it's going to be difficult to stitch this down. So what you want to do is take this pair of scissors and do a few little clips. Try not to go through your stitches there. And then you'll find that it's easier to get it to go around the corners. And then you would just continue pinning all the way around, and like I said, do those little slits at all of the corners. I've got it all pinned on, and so now I'm coming around to where my two ends are going to meet. So I'm going to overlap the fabric about a 1/2 inch. I always do a little more than what I really need just in case I cut wrong, which I've been known to do. So then, now I know what a 1/2 inch looks like, but if you need to measure, go ahead and just cut off the excess. Then bring these two ends together and stitch a 1/4 inch. Got my fabric ends stitched together. Now you need to cut some of this off. And remember what you need to do before you cut into this. You need to put some tape around it. So have a piece of tape ready and put it around the end. So now bring those two ends together, overlap them, okay, where you think they're going to meet, and just mark right there like that. And then go ahead and cut it off. Now I'm going to use a rotary cutter because I'm really bad with scissors. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut this off. And there you go. So now you bring your two ends together, and if it still looks like you have too much, then just go ahead and cut a little off. Make sure you still got tape around there. Now fold this over, and at your sewing machine, go back and finish stitching this part of the piping closed before you stitch it onto your pillow. After finish stitching that piping closed and finish pinning it along the edge, then go back to your sewing machine. Make sure you still have your piping foot on if you're using one, and then stitch right along up against that cording all the way around all four sides. Take your fabric pieces for the back and place one of them down, and this is the edge where you folded over and stitched it. It's going to be in the center section of your pillow. Line it up on these three edges here and place straight pins to hold. Then take your last piece, overlap it, line it up on these three edges here, and pin it down. Then, still keeping your piping foot on, or zipper foot if that's what you're using, and stitch around all four sides. Make sure that you back stitch here and up here, because these are stress areas where you will be pulling on it to get your pillow form inside and out. Before you turn it right side out, I recommend that you trim a little bit of this fabric off at the corner, about half the distance, half the width. And I use a rotary cutter only because it's just easier for me, and maybe just a tiny bit off of each side of the corner. Again, do that at all four corners, and then turn your pillow front side out. To insert the pillow form, just lift up the flap and begin pushing it on the inside. You may have to mush it up a little bit to get it in there. Then lift up the other flap push it inside. And then straighten out the flap and smooth it so that it looks nice. And there you go. You're all done. For more pillow project ideas, play this video until a green screen appears and then click on the links. If you like this video, click on thumbs up and then click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red button down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. Click on the little bell and enter your email address so you receive emails about my latest video. If you're not receiving those email notifications, go to your cell phone or iPad, click on Settings, and turn notifications in the on position. This is Paul, this is Manny, this is Jamie. So glad you came to my sewing room. See you next time, and happy sewing!